Good evening, everybody. This is Michael, and I'm substituting for Tuya here. If you're a member of the Blue Rose Sisterhood or the Shiva Brothers, then at 9:30 tonight, we will continue with our Shambhala names of Mary between the traditional death of Mary on August 15th to the traditional Virgo birth in September 8th. Meanwhile, we're going to meditate on the attraction of money for hierarchical purposes. It's a very important factor, and Master DK reminds us that the meditation is very simple, and we might almost think it's futile, but if many use it simultaneously, it's going to shatter the impasse which at present prevents adequate funds pouring into the work of which the hierarchy seeks to accomplish. Hierarchy has to work through normal channels. They're not going to work in some outwardly miraculous manner, and that's just an exaggeration on the part of the theologically minded. As it is said in the Agni Yoga teaching, by human hands and human feet. Every Sunday morning we do the meditation, but of course that's not possible here this evening, and maybe in the United States this morning. And already in Australia and New Zealand it's the next day. We do the best we can to work together in this. he asks us to take what we have saved in the previous week and dedicate it to the work and present it in meditation to the Christ and his hierarchy, whether the sum is large or small, because it can become a magnetic and attractive unit in the Master's plans. So we begin our consideration. This will not be a lengthy meditation. It's calls for sacrifice, and when it comes to money, people have peculiar attitudes, and they shy away from it as if money is tainted and it cannot really be used for spiritual purposes. But of course, that's a very old Piscean attitude, and everything will change in the Aquarian age about that. Money is a great creative flowing golden substance, and it can be used for spiritual purposes and really must be used for spiritual purposes. So hopefully, those of us who need to change our attitude towards this creative flow can do that. And it's one of the big tests, Master DK tells us, how we do handle the resources under our control, and because it's going to say something about our desire body. It's going to tell those who observe what the level of our desires are, and what is our willingness to sacrifice, to look for something and support something greater at the expense of something that is not as high, that is lower. It's a test. And it's one of the tests of the Hydra. So on the physical plane especially. One of the tests in Scorpio, and Scorpio is one of those, financial signs very much. So we work on together, and we realize the truth of the old saying that to those who give shall be given. And, if we were going to complete that, so that they can give again. Think about that for a minute. The riches of the world are available to the Masters if they want it, because they have proven that they will only use this flowing golden substance for the divine plan. So the strictly personal use of money, obviously there are some personal things that, one needs to use it for, of course, but the major orientation towards that which is personal in the use of money has been overcome by these great beings, and we have to overcome as well. So we'll begin our with stage one, now that we've gotten the proper orientation. And we do this by asking ourselves some questions. So attune as a soul and realize that essentially your kingdom is not of this world, and that you are a serving unit of consciousness here, and that there's nothing in the phenomenal world ultimately that can really hold you. It's a world of effects. It's not really a world of reality. So we ask ourselves, having aligned, as a higher being, as an observer, as a witness of many things, if money is one of the most important things needed today for spiritual work, What is the factor which is at present deflecting it away from the work of the hierarchy? And hopefully, those who are speaking strictly Finnish can simply read the text here. And the next question, this is, of course, answered in the light of the soul. What is my personal attitude towards money? Do I regard it as a great and possible spiritual asset, or do I think of it in material terms? So every ashram, has its objectives as part of the divine plan. And when we think across the board of these 7 ashrams, it pretty well tells us what has to be brought into manifestation. Is our attitude towards money impersonal and in line with the divine plan, or are we really still trying to satisfy our personal desires? Next question. What is my personal responsibility in regard to money which passes through my hands? Am I handling it as a disciple of the Masters should handle it? Now, we kind of remember, Hercules had to fight that Hydra. And one of the physical heads is money. Law, it's sex, money, and comfort. And they all 3 really go together in our sacral center issues largely. All of the centers have to be sustained. We can't have life without any of them really, but the higher centers are our obligation. So if we're deeply involved in the love of money for its own sake and for the sake of the desires that money can fulfill personal desires, then we just have not defeated the Hydra. So, you assess your own situation, and is your attitude towards money still under the spell of that head of the Hydra, which is associated with it? You see so many people for whom that is the case. Have we freed ourselves from that particular vice? Now, ponder on the redemption of humanity through the right use of money. We know that it could be spent on health, on education, on community projects which would help everybody. We know that it need not be cornered or hoarded by those for whom it boosts ego power. So, in this regard, we visualize the money in the world as concretized energy. At present, largely used for purely material purposes and for the satisfaction, where the individual is concerned, of purely personal desires. This is sadly the case. If we think of ourselves as a little ego, a little personal identity, we're going to use money to enhance the apparent welfare of that little being. It's just our instrument. We're not really that at all, but that's the way it goes at the moment. Now, instead of those wasteful, non-constructive ways of spending money, instead visualize money as a great stream of flowing golden substance passing out of the control of the forces of materialism and into the control of the forces of light. And we know the forces of light will use money to give life and manifestation to those projects and enterprises which really help humanity. With that in mind, we say this invocative prayer. O Thou, in whom we live and move and have our being, the power that can make all things new, turn to spiritual purposes the money in the world. Touch the hearts of men everywhere so that they may give to the work of the hierarchy that which has hitherto been given to material satisfaction. The new group of world servers needs money in large quantities. I ask that the needed vast sums be made available. May this potent energy of thine be in the hands of the forces of light. It is custodianship, is it not? I mean, the money doesn't really belong to us. The energy doesn't really belong to us. We are custodians of a type of energy which can lead to the manifestation of the good. Money controlled by the will to good. It's the energy of thine, of the one in whom we live and move and have our being. Now, we visualize the work to be done by those groups which claim our present allegiance, any group that we know is attempting to carry out the hierarchical plan. Through the creative imagination and by an act of the will, we will see untold and unlimited sums of money pouring into the hands of those who seek to do the Master's work. And then, as the masters and their initiates and disciples and world workers receive that money, that flowing golden substance, there's going to be a lot of wonderful things that can be manifested and which will lift humanity and which will bring the whole planet nearer to sacredness. And we think about the Christ here, that he for whom the whole world waits has said that whatsoever shall be asked in his name, and with faith in the response, will see it accomplished. Faith is very important. Sometimes even more esoterically we substitute the word light here for faith. But let us remember that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And filled with faith, we will use it in our request to the great Lord in his name, asking for, what shall it be? What group, what projects, what efforts shall we seek to see strengthened? I ask the needed money for, and you fill in according to your own inclination. And I can demand this because from the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. As Master Morya has said, by human hands and human feet. So we are part of working out the plan of love and light. And we do this with humanity and in response to the Christ and his hierarchy, and thus we do our little part in sealing the door where evil dwells. And we say together, attuning with the great Lord, the head of the hierarchy, we have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya. Be with us. And in our living imagination, we offer to the great Lord and to his masters and their initiates and so forth the money we have saved during the previous week, or that we intend to direct towards the plan. So we close our meditation here with a careful consideration of our own responsibility to that part of the plan that we can support in our own life, and that kind of part of the plan that we can support financially, even though it's out of our hands and in the hands of others. We realize that every little bit counts, and it's such a fallacy to say, I'm so small I can't make a difference. So we plan our weekly financial cooperation with the hierarchy and with the manifestation of the divine plan, and we are practical about it, we're realistic, and realize that if we don't give, we may not ask, for we have no right to evoke that which we do not share. So we will make our plan of how we will support those efforts which really are doing their best to manifest the divine plan along one line or another. And we will sound the Om 3 times, precipitating love into the world of the threefold personality as true love sweeps through us. If we can have the fixed intention to express that love to all we contact, it will do wonders. It's the great attractive and selfless agent in world affairs. friends, we thank you for being here, working together. It's not always, really the most pleasant subject. DK complimented a man who was at that time the secretary for Alice Bailey. He was a Libran individual, I think. It's got a lot to do with money, and he says, you've overcome your secondary fear about asking money for the work. So let us try to be as responsible as we can be as we direct money into the best channels that will really help others. So many people in the world, underprivileged, they just don't have what they need, not by a long shot. And some places have the glut, and there's constant waste. That evening out, that right circulation has to occur. So we certainly want to think seriously about this stream of flowing golden substance and where we direct that little portion of it that may be under our control. So we'll resume with Ask Work. Next week it'll be the morning schedule, looks like. It'll be Wednesday, Triangles Meditation. Meanwhile, I think the full moon is going to be coming along, so we'll be working with that, and stay alert, and we'll let you know. You can use this particular link for everything except the webinars. And you can join us interiorly to work within and really make a difference, because esotericism is a great causative factor. Thank you, everyone. Many blessings, lots of love, and let's work together to make a better world.